Notre Dame football has their sights fully on the Indiana Hoosiers' first ever 12-team playoff kicking off on December 20th at home, Notre Dame Stadium, South Bend, Indiana. But you can bet that the Notre Dame recruiting staff is doing their due diligence on the transfer portal, which is officially opened this week. Couple very intriguing prospects have entered the portal the last couple days, and I think Notre Dame should be very much in on both. Let's talk about these two potential targets here today. Ryan Roberts, A to Z Sports, breaking down everything you need to know Notre Dame football. Transfer portal officially opening this week. There's a couple players that have already entered that I think should be very high on the Notre Dame radar, and one in particular, not going to say which, that I think Notre Dame will be very much in the conversation for. So let's do one offense, one defense. We know the two biggest positions of needs this transfer portal market is going to be at wide receiver and defensive tackle specifically for Notre Dame. I think for defensive tackle specifically, which we'll get to here in a little bit, I think Notre Dame could be in the market potentially two guys on the interior defensive line. Let's start though at wide receiver for a guy that Notre Dame fans are probably pretty familiar with because Notre Dame actually played him this year, and that is Eric Singleton Jr., wide receiver for Georgia Tech, over 50 receptions this year, over 700 yards. He has officially entered the transfer portal. A smaller body, sub 6 foot, about 185 pounds, but Eric Singleton Jr. can absolutely fly. Ran 10.3 and 100 meter coming out of high school. I think there's two trains of thought for Notre Dame in this wide receiver market. There's two different types that they could potentially go after. One is a outside, vertically oriented boundary receiver. Think size, physicality. What they were hoping they would get with a Bo Collins, and I know that one hasn't exactly turned out great down the stretch of the season, but think length, think physicality into the boundary. The other style, which fits in the Singleton mold, is more of a Z receiver, can play into the slot a little bit, but has speed for days. A guy that can truly unlock the deeper portions of the field. What we were hoping to get out of Chris Mitchell, I think that potentially you could get out of Eric Singleton Jr. I hope, and I really wish that Notre Dame has interest in Eric Singleton Jr. He seems to be exactly the type of player that they would have interest in. A speed receiver, 10-300 meter coming out of high school. He was also at Georgia Tech, and I know he's obviously going to be an undergrad, so some people are going to have a question of if this guy that Notre Dame can target, but I do think that he has the tangible parts of being a student athlete that would be very attractive to a place like a Notre Dame coming from a place like Georgia Tech. So it would be certainly a player that I would have heavy interest in if I was the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Second guy on the interior defensive line, I expect Notre Dame to be very aggressive for defensive tackles in this cycle. I could see them bringing in a couple. And one guy that entered that I think is extremely interesting the last couple of days, James Thompson Jr. out of Wisconsin. Now, he is already a graduate senior, so there's going to be no questions about if you can get James Thompson Jr. into school. I've already seen him get several offers in the portal since it's opened. Stanford is one, so obviously there's no academic concerns as a transfer student getting into the University of Notre Dame. 6'5", 295 pounds. He missed all of the season outside of the first game. He had an upper body injury, wasn't disclosed what that was, that he had surgery on. But from what I've read, timetable is good for him to be back this offseason, potentially get ready for the 2025 season after announcing he entering the transfer portal. The two previous years, 13 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, incredibly disruptive player, has length, athleticism, where I think he could play anywhere from a 2-2-I at times to all the way outside to a 5 in certain fronts specifically. This is a versatile player. And if you do get a James Thompson Jr., I think Notre Dame could still be in the market for a true nose tackle, a little bit of a bigger body. But this is a perfect 3 technique to potentially help cushion the losses of a Riley Mills. And if Jason Onye is not able to return for Notre Dame in the future, I do think that he has that longer athletic frame that could fit really well into that vacated position. So James Thompson Jr. on the defensive side of the ball is someone I would have heavy interest in if I was Notre Dame. Guys, in the comments below, let me know. Eric Singleton Jr., James Thompson Jr., guys you would have interest in or not. And as always, folks, as we get closer and closer to the first round playoff game against Indiana, you know the drill. Go Irish.